A little advice. A little advice. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Just a little advice. Just a little advice with Christine Little. Check it out.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Little Advice Podcast, a podcast where me, comedian Christine Little, gives a little advice to one of my guests. It's only a little advice because I only have a little degree, okay? I got a BA in psychology, that's it. But, okay, I also read a lot of self-help books, so I'm like, I'm qualified to do this. I can do this. This is episode number 11 with a very funny comedian and writer, Ife Wadiwe. He's been on At Midnight, Black Card Revoked, and he's got his own comedy album, The Community College Dropout, which can be bought on Amazon and other places that albums are sold. And in this episode, we talk about dollar bills, y'all, money, finance. And if you know anything about me or have talked to me for over 5 minutes, you know that I own a home. So I feel like I'm qualified to give some financial advice. And he's got a problem with spending money when he gets it. So hopefully this episode will help you if you've got that same problem. And podcast related, if you want to talk more about this episode or give advice yourself, if you're good with money, please head over to our Facebook group, the Little Advice Podcast Facebook group. You just have to search for it and leave a comment. Tell us what your advice would be. And again, please rate, subscribe, and leave a little review. I'd love to give you a shout out on the podcast. I want to give a shout out to Stephanie Hargitay for writing her comment in the Facebook group about Sophia Alexandra's episode. Thank you so much for that. That was really helpful. And with no further ado, please enjoy episode number 11 with Ife Wadiwe. Thank you for listening to A Little Advice. Hi, Ife.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going really good. I'm sweating because I was running around.
Yeah, you went on a real mission before.
Yeah, you know what? I just learned recently that I like excitement, and I was getting it through all my relationships, but then I'm starting to notice all the weird stuff I do.
Yeah.
In terms of waiting last minute to do things, and I think I'm getting off on it in a weird way. So that's a little too much info.
Or maybe just enough.
Or maybe just enough. How do I say your last name?
Wadiwe. The end is silent.
Are you asking me why do I want to know, or what? No.
What is this?
Wait, no. I just found this. Okay, I'll let it do it. Okay, it's pretty long.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I deserve that. Thank you. Also.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, I don't know if I'll ever use that again. But, okay, so what's your problem?
Okay, so my problem is I feel like I just am so bad with money. And by bad with money, I mean, I'm always spending it. And anytime I'm like, all right, I'm going to save, something comes up that I want to buy. And I'm like, you know what, I have to get it. And I always can talk myself into it. And before I thought it was just an overall control issue, but I'm doing the keto and I'm totally fine with that. But with that, I'm able to stay on the wagon, and if I jump off, I'm able to get back on. But when it just comes to money, trying to save it, trying to make sure that I have some saved over, it just never pans out.
That's really interesting that you've been so committed with the keto. You lost a lot of weight on that too, right?
Yeah.
The keto diet. How much have you?
I'd say 60 total in a year,
Whoa.
60 total pounds. But when I started keto, 30 from that point.
Yeah, because of the intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
which one of my friends calls anorexia on his schedule. I don't agree with that, but wow. So you do have self-control.
Yes. So that's why it's tricky for me, where it's with whether it be weight loss or fitness, I can have that self-control. But when it is with money, it's yep, no, I'm just going to spend it. And I also think it's because, a lot of the stuff that I'm into is very, hyped and flash in the pan. I just bought some new shoes, those off-white ones, and I'm happy I got them. But it's you either get them now or you'll never be able to get them again. And there's never one that I'm I'll take a pass on this. I always try.
Wow, I have like the exact opposite problem. So, I'm sorry, I'm bringing this back up, but have you lost weight before and gained it back, or is this the first
Oh
time?
yeah, I've lost weight before and gained it back.
Okay, all right. So, have you ever gone on a budget before and been able to keep that steady, or is just
I've
never?
been on budgets, but I haven't necessarily successfully kept one. I tried every app. I'm trying this new app now, which because after these shoes, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and budget and see what's up. And I'll tell you the name of the app. The app is called.
Acorn.
No, that one is cool,
Robinhood.
No, that is I do
Mint.
have Robinhood, but Clarity Money.
Oh, never
Yeah.
heard of that.
Yeah, and Robinhood's been good in a way because I'm tricking myself into saving money by investing. And,
Yeah.
But also that means that there is a chance it could just disappear. But like since it's in Robinhood and it's attached to stocks and that money technically isn't real.
It's not liquid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't spend it. So it's been sitting there. And so far it's been just raising steadily. I haven't
great.
lost any money. But that's been the closest I've gotten to saving money. And, my credit cards, I just found out, someone told me that apparently you're supposed to keep your credit card usage under like 30%. And I was like, oh no, I just thought as long as you had it, you were good. Yeah, so.
Okay. All right, how do we start here? So I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe part of I'm thinking a couple of theories here. Maybe part of the reason why you have trouble saving is that you feel it's almost like a diet restriction thing. You feel like you're not going to be able to get anything you want. And then so you kind of like, it's like a form of binging almost with spending the money. And then maybe your patterns growing up and how your family related to money. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So I feel like growing up with my mom, we didn't have much money. And my dad, we had money, but he was kind of like, stingy with it. Like he would buy me stuff that I needed. And it wasn't until like high school when he started loosening up and like getting me stuff. But it's always been like, like, oh, you can have this one day. Like I remember one time, I hate that I still remember this, but like my mom took me shopping and we got all these cool clothes for kids and she put it on layaway and she was like, well, come back and get it. And we never did. And I just remember being like, all right, well, never got that.
Oh my gosh. So many layers to that. It's
Yeah.
like you were expecting these cool things. Someone said they were going to do something and they didn't do it. Like that.
Yeah.
I've had that happen. I still remember my aunt didn't take me to Rosalind Bakery in Indianapolis. I will never forget that, Phoebe. Anyway, so, okay. So I love that you're doing this Robinhood app. I think that's really, really good. And personally, what I like to do with money, and I want to ask you about your mom too, but before I forget this, personally, what I like to do with money is just like automate things as much as possible, like with my bills and the bills that I know I have to pay, have those automatically scheduled to be paid. I don't like to keep a balance on my credit cards. If you do have a balance on your credit cards right now, it may be good, depending on how your credit is, to get a credit card that they have a lot of intro credit cards where it's like 0% interest for the first 12 to 18 months. And that'd be a really good way for you to pay off that card without paying extra money on it. And similarly, like if you want to make a big purchase, it would be good to put something like that on a credit card that won't charge you any interest. So at least you're not paying more and you're doing it in manageable sizes. So there's that. And also, let me hear about your mom's spend, like what it was like with your mom.
Yeah. So my mom, I think, I oftentimes say that I get my spending from her because she's the same way. Lots of impulse spending, just getting kind of what she wants. Sometimes, that'll come back and bite her, where my dad is kind of like the opposite. He's like like I said, very strict, stickler, will only get, but I remember if I had like money problems, I would always wait till the last minute to ask him because because he'd give me a long lecture and he's like, you need to get better with your money. One time he totally took my debit card away from me. And he was like, this is like you, because I would do a thing where I had a full-time job. I was working for the county, and I would like basically spend all my money and then end up overdrafting, and then when my next paycheck was deposited, I would have less money, and it was just this never-ending cycle. So he's like, I'm going to take your card away so that you cannot spend more money than you have. And so did that for a while, and then eventually got my card back, but I still don't think I was necessarily good with money.
Your dad Britney Spears your money?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So what, like, has it, so it's always been like that? You've always been like kind of binging with the money?
Yeah, and it's always been the thing of like where I tell myself, well, as long as I pay all these bills and then I make sure there's food for, Naomi and Aurora at home, then like who cares what I do with this thing? But I am
his wife and daughter.
Yeah. And so after I feel like after a few times of doing that, it's just more just recklessness where it's like, all right, things like one of the big things that happened is like I totally forgot because I went to DC last weekend and forgot to put in my timesheet for work. So I found that out on my way here. So I'm just not going to get paid this week.
What?
Yeah, because like if you don't turn in your timesheet, you don't get paid.
And there's no...
Well, I'll get paid for both weeks next Friday.
Okay.
So I still get the money, but now I'm like, oh shit, because now I'm gonna have to basically use my credit card for gas.
Oh
and everything.
no.
Yeah, and the credit card, that was the plan. I had it all planned out that like a portion of my check would, because my biggest plan now, more than saving, is to just get a zero balance on the credit card.
Okay.
Because I told myself that because I have two. And one is like a Delta Sky Miles, and the other one's just like a Capital One joint. And I told myself, I'm going to pay them both off. The Capital One stays in the drawer, and that's just going to be my emergency if something happens. And then the Sky Miles will be the one that I can do my fun purchases, but making sure I pay it off. Once I get into a zero balance, kind of keep paying it off. And then so that's been my game plan. My game plan was like every time I get paid, I'm gonna pay it down and then try and make sure I pay my bills, because I do have the car note that I have to pay, then the phone bill, and then I have the insurance for the car. So it's kind of like this weird feeling of like there's always something to pay.
Yeah.
So let me treat myself.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with treating yourself if you're working really hard. But also, I think it's good to have in mind what your goals are. Like, are you going to want to purchase a house? Like, are you going to want to set up a college fund for your kid? Do you want to work on your retirement? Those are other things to think about instead of just debt, paying off debt. And I think that's part of the issue, too, is that we're just, like, working to pay off debt instead of building wealth.
Yeah, well, then that's where the kind of trickier aspect of it kind of comes from, and because we're in the same industry. But the way I look at like those kind of long-term goals is like, well, that like the money I'm making now is never gonna amount to a house. It's gonna be when I get on another staff.
I'm glad that you said that, because that's not true. Not to brag, but everyone knows this, I own this place, and it has afforded me the opportunity to put more energy into my career to where I am going to make better money. And once you get that money, it's important that you know what to do with it, so you're just not racking up debt, but on a bigger level.
Yeah.
So what do you think about having a goal like that, like buying a house or building wealth or doing retirement? Is that something that you want?
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I want, like that would be amazing. But like I said, I just always looked at like, oh, that's not a not right now thing, right? That's a later thing when, I sell X or Y show.
So what's your advantage to thinking that? Like, what are you getting out of that? What's your payoff?
I think what I get out of it is just no guilt of not saving.
Okay, that's good.
I feel like it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter that I'm not saving because I have a plan to save in the future. And right now, it doesn't matter that, I'm spending so frivolously, because of X, Y, Z.
Well, let's get you into a habit where you can still buy stuff that you want, and that's fun, but also that you're building towards your future and your family's future too.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
So I've got some resources for you. One is, have you heard of the Actors Fund?
I've heard of it, but I don't know too much about it.
Definitely look into there. They have a lot of resources for actors, producers, directors, anyone in the entertainment industry. And they have a workshop in there called Budgeting Nuts and Bolts. But before that workshop, there's another one where you kind of figure out the psychology of your spending habits and your relationship with money, because it's really interesting, like how we think about our money affects how much money we have in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So so there's that. I think that's going to be really helpful to know what your expenses are and what your budget is. And one of the biggest takeaways I got a lot of takeaways from that workshop, and it's free, by the way, so you don't have to pay anything, so you don't have to feel guilty about it. One of the big takeaways is like when you get a windfall. So say like you book a gig and you're still working whatever your job is, but it's not like your main career. So say you get a windfall of like $1,000 or something like that. So a strategy that you could have for that is to divide that in 4. And so for I don't know if I'm going to remember all this. 1/4, pay off your debt, right? And then another 1/4, buy yourself something nice, buy your shoes or whatever. And then another one, put it into your wealth building account. Like Capital, you said you're with Capital One. Mm-hmm. They have a good savings account online. They used to be ING, but what I like about their savings account is that you can compound interest in there. So, and it's higher than a normal savings account attached to your checking account at whatever bank. And then the other 1/4 you can put into your fund for your expenses. Like, so you kind of have like a backup for the bills that you have to pay. Yeah. So that way you're not cheating yourself. You're still buying yourself something nice. You're still saving towards your retirement, and you're paying off debt. And you're hitting it. But also like pay the minimums of your credit card and stuff like that. I would also suggest definitely, if you are paying interest on those, try to get it transferred over to a non-interest credit card. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. The current goal now is to get under 30 on both cards, so that that's kind of the thing that has the chokehold on my credit right now.
Okay.
Is that both cards are so high.
Oh, I see.
But because one thing I have been doing is my debt has always been a priority, because I ran into a lot of debt very early on. Yeah. My first credit card experiences were the one I got when I had my first Wells Fargo account, and then the second one I got my first day at community college, because they were giving free Subway sandwiches.
Of course they were.
When you signed up for a credit card.
They're so predatory. It makes me so sick.
Well, it was also before the crash, so like you didn't need
Well, that's
credit.
what causes the crash, just giving kids credit cards and loans that they'll never be able to pay off.
And then then while I had those, it was all good, and then one thing that's crazy, funny, shitty, weird, but always I feel like I could take better advantage of this than letting it be as much as the way it is I've always if I lost a job or something, I always seem to be able to find enough, something seems to just come for me and help me land on feet. But because of that, I'll just kind of free fall until it's oh, if I didn't have this job, shit would have happened.
You like the excitement of it.
There's almost a level to it of just, it's not even an excitement, but a freedom of just not stressing and going with the flow. But then there's a level to it where it's if I can just tweak it where I don't necessarily hit the brink, that would be, of course, ideal. But it's really just I don't plan much. I mean, obviously with the
you can
budget.
Definitely do it. I know you can. There's so many tactics. So you don't want to. You want to still enjoy the freedom of being able to buy stuff for yourself and not be stressing about money all the time because you have faith that something's going to work out.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to take such a big risk and have those feelings of guilt and shame and stuff around spending too much.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. another suggestion I have for you is just set up, you probably have this, I don't know, but have money automatically deposit to a savings account.
Well, I don't, because I took away the savings account, because what would happen is, let me try and pinpoint exactly how it worked, but basically it happened in the way that I would put money in my savings and then would spend so much with my checking that it would do overdraft protection and transfer it over. And after you transfer from your savings to your checking, after a certain amount of time, they're kind of forced to close your savings account. And that happened to me twice. And then I was like, all right, then I'm just not going to have
Because of the overdrafts?
Well, the overdrafts and like me spending everything in my checking account was like, well, I need to buy this thing.
Oh, I see.
And a thing that I've been really bad about, that I need to better about, is like when I get money, I think of what I want before I think of what I need.
That makes sense. Okay, I've got so many ideas, and I don't know if any of these will resonate with you. But one is this is what I used to do when I was a waitress. I don't know how you get paid. It's harder when you don't have cash, but I would have envelopes at my house, and whenever I got paid, I would just automatically take out 20%, 10% to give away, 10% to put in my savings account. And the 10% to give away, which is really tough, partially is because it's like a relationship you have with money, and just like knowing that it'll cut, like it's an energy thing, whatever you put out, like will come back to you.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like good to help people, right?
Yeah.
So separating it into envelopes, but you can also do that with checking accounts. So you can have your spend account, and you can have your savings account and your regular checking account. What I also do is have a business checking account for entertainment expenses like travel, headshots, whatever. And you can write some of that stuff off. So that's another good reason it'd be good to have like separate accounts. Mm-hmm. So if you had a regular checking account, you could have one where you pay all your bills, and then you could have one that's your fun spending account, and then you could have one that's your savings account. Do you think you would be able to stick to spending money only out of the fun account? Would you be able to separate that in your mind?
Yeah, because I think I would just not have the other cards. I would just take them out of my wallet.
Because you could set up something to where you deposit all of your money into one account, and then from there automatically have it siphon out a percentage or a certain amount if your pay is pretty steady.
Yeah.
And that could be your fun money.
Okay.
Like maybe 10% of your money or something like that.
Yeah.
So if you're making like, I don't know, $500 a week, which you're probably making way more than that. I'm just really poor. You'd get $50 for each time, or $100 if you want to do 20%.
Yeah. What
do you think?
That sounds good. Yeah.
You hit your nose, so I think you're kind of lying.
No.
So,
is that
you're like, yeah, sure.
Well, my nose itched. I had an itchy nose.
And how convenient. Automatically. So I think it also helped too if you had like a plan for also building your money and not just paying off debt, because that's so lame.
Okay.
And it's not fun at all. But if you're thinking, ooh, I'm saving up to get these pair of shoes, or you could think about stuff that you want, or make a list of things that you want before you get the money, and then take and build it up to get that amount. So say it's going to be $250 for a pair of shoes, which I think is ridiculous.
No,
but say it is.
Well, I'm generally paying. The last pair of shoes I got, luckily, was $130.
Wow.
But those they currently are go for about $700.
What? Are they collector shoes?
Well, they're Off-White shoes. And shoes.
I don't know what that means.
Off-White is a fashion brand made by Virgil Abloh. Do you remember any of that? Do you remember that guy that Kanye was hugging at the Louis Vuitton fashion show?
Do you think I know?
Okay. Virgil Abloh was a part of Kanye's inner circle when he was like deep into fashion. They would go to Paris Fashion Week. And then he eventually created his own brand called Off-White, which took off as like this huge streetwear brand. And now he has been brought on as Louis Vuitton's like lead designer. And so he just did a collaboration with Nike where he did all these deconstructed style shoes. I actually just took a picture of them because they got.
Are you wearing these shoes?
No, I'm wearing Yeezys right now.
Let me see if these are worth it. All right, they're very white.
Yeah, these are the triple whites. They're comfy.
Triple whites. They look comfy.
And these are the shoes that I got.
Oh, those are fun.
Yeah, and they normally cost $130, but resale, since they're so rare, goes upwards to $600.
Dude, I would buy those.
Yeah.
And then sell them
Yeah,
and take that money and put it into a savings account or an investment account and earn even more money on it. Then I'd save up so much money. I'd put a down payment on another place. Do you like to keep on? You like to hold on to stuff that you buy?
I mean, yeah, and sometimes it gets tricky too because I'll trick myself because I'll be like, oh, I'll get this because it's not because it's worth money, and I'll flip it, and then I'll go, oh, but I actually want to keep it, and then I'll put these like weird, bizarre.
Are you a hoarder?
Not necessarily. I'm more so a collector who I like.
A collector is a classy hoarder.
Well, yeah, and the things you hoard are way more expensive, but. So so they depreciated a bit. So now they're going for $580.
Oh my god!
But so this is a good example. So I'll buy. Say I'm like, okay, I really can't afford to buy these, but I'll buy them, so I'll flip them, and then they were going for $700 2 days ago. But now that everyone who bought them has received them in the mail, everyone's trying to sell them. So
it's
the
like
price
stock.
goes down. Yeah. That's it. This site, StockX, is a shoe sales that's kind of based on socks. So I will go here and go, okay, it's going for $580, and then obviously StockX takes a cut, so I probably would make like $400 and some change of it, and I'll be like, that's not worth it to sell it, because then I'm only making $300. But like that literally happened with these PlayStation shoes that I got.
Wait, PlayStation makes shoes?
Well, Nike did a collaboration with PlayStation to make some Air Forces with the PlayStation print on them, and I bought them, and I definitely did not have the money for them, and I was like, but I'm gonna flip them and they were going for $1,000, and I think they costed like $200. I was like, okay, cool. And then when I got them in the mail, they dropped down to going for like $500-600. I was like, see, that's not worth it. If it was going for the $1,000, I would flip it. When in the end, it's just because I really wanted the shoe. And if it was a shoe that I truly wasn't interested in, it wouldn't matter. Like a $50, profit is good to me.
So what do you do with all the stuff that you get, like all the shoes? Do you have a lot of shoes?
Yeah, I have a few. I mean, I don't like, most sneakerheads would scoff at the amount of shoes I have. I probably have like
sneakerheads, huh?
Like about anywhere. I think I finally hit like the 40 amount. I have 40 sneakers. Okay. Yeah.
So how often do you buy shoes? Or is it just shoes, or is it other things too?
Well, it's shoes. It's this outfit that I just bought. This was like $70-something. The outfits, I tend to be a little more reasonable. I'll make sure I'm shopping at places that sell things for reasonable prices, and I'll splurge once. For some reason, I seem to be able to do that, and I think it's because clothes kind of last longer. There isn't that sense of urgency, whereas like those shoes that I bought went on sale Tuesday, and if I didn't buy them on Tuesday, then I would have had to pay $500. And I didn't just go out and buy them. Like, you had to enter a draw for them. So I won the draw, and I got the shoes.
Oh my God, those people are marketing geniuses. Yeah. Well, they're creating such a sense of urgency. People feel like they need to buy them, and then they appreciate it more because it was so hard to get. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the thing, and the one thing I've been finding is like I've been like, okay, I just get these shoes and I'm fine, but then more shoes come out. So it's been the thing, and the median price, if I can get the shoe for retail, is going to be anywhere between the $150 to $250 range. So what I was trying to do for my sake and the sake of savings is getting my carbs to a zero balance so that I can at least go, okay, I'm going to pay for the shoes. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna pay for these shoes, and then I'll just pay it off, and I'll do every shoe like that, and then even, if I have to miss a drop, I can tell myself, okay, I'll just pay the resale price and pay that off and stick to one shoe. Or worst case scenario, because I'm at a zero balance, I can just afford another shoe and then pay that down. So that's where I've been trying to get to, but then we have the kind of, I think I overpay for, like, I try and do the thing where it's like, I'm just trying to get this over with and try and get to that stage of my life. So then I'll, pay as much as I can. So I'll put like $200 on each card, which is like $400. And then I'll be like, all right, cool. And then I'll just like live off of this. And then something comes up that I need to pay. Like and then so now I spend all what would be my spending money on the actual real bills. And then I'm trying to I was like, okay, I just need to make it to Friday. But then something comes up, whether it's gas or I have an audition coming up, I need to get a haircut. There's always something. And then I use the card, and then that kind of breaks the seal, because I use the card once, and I'm just like, all right, well, I'm out, let me grab something to eat, and then it just slowly goes back, and then it feels like the stone has rolled down back the hill.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're caught up in a vicious cycle, and you just keep doing the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
How many pairs of shoes do you typically buy, like, a month?
It really does depend. I really is kind of like chasing the drops, because like for this month, I've bought 2 pairs of shoes. Well, technically no, because September was the last pair, and then this month started, and then I got these pairs. And then before that, the shoes that I've gotten before that, I was able to kind of hold off for a bit. I think the last time before that were the PlayStation shoes that I got, and that was back in June.
So what do you think about having a set amount of money that you can spend on shoes per month and socking that away instead of taking it from your bill money?
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So do you have like direct deposit set up for your
No,
payments?
I still need to do that. I still need to set up direct deposit.
All right. That makes sense. I think once you get some systems in place, it's going to be a lot easier for you to take control of your money situation. Automatic payments for your credit cards. And I don't know if you're familiar with the tactic of taking, so you have 2 credit cards you're paying off, whichever one has the smallest balance or the highest interest, either one. Pay that off first, make the minimum payment on the other card, and once you've paid the smallest card off by like any surplus that you get paying on that, on top of the minimum, and then taking that minimum payment that you were paying for the first card plus any surplus and applying it to the second card with the higher balance, and it's a tactic to pay that down faster.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a resource. But I think if getting something set up to where you have a savings account, like I'm with Bank of America, and I'm sure other banks do this too. Like anytime I make a purchase, no matter what, say I go get gas and it's, $40 and like 80 cents, then 20 cents is automatically going to go into my savings account. Like it does the change.
Yeah.
And so, you can also do something where you have an automatic deduction taken out of your savings account. Stuff that you'll not notice, like $20 or $25 a month, plus all of your change, and then siphoning off another $20 or $40 a month into your other savings account that you don't see that much, that you don't even have a debit card with.
Yeah.
So you can't. It's not easily accessible. So you'd have to do a lot of work to get to that money.
Yeah.
And if your credit cards are hidden, you won't be so tempted to whip that out.
Yeah.
But I think if you made a plan to give yourself, $300 a month if you needed it to buy shoes or every other month, and you save up to that, instead of using the money that you need for your bill. Do you know how much you need for your expenses each month?
You know, generally, yeah. I don't have it like nailed in my head. You know, definitely, you know, 1,100 for rent. I think it's like 273 now. That's going to be my car insurance, and that I have no choice. They pluck it out, and that one's the trickiest one of all because it's like right after rent. And so if I'm not thinking about it, that is going to be an L every time. And they always come, and I tried to find ways to stop the auto pay feature, but it seems like it's the only way. The phone bill is about $200, and my car note's about $400.
Utilities, groceries, food?
Utilities is going to be utilities with LIDWP. It's every 2 months. So
I hate that. You know what I do? Send a payment every month.
Okay.
And you can also, I don't know if you would qualify, but they do have financial hardship plans for the electricity and for power and for gas.
Yeah.
And they have a leveling out payment for gas to where you can have, like I have $37 taken out every month. I have a credit of like $90 now.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can cancel that payment and it'll go back into my account. So it's like free money that you forgot that you had.
Oh, nice.
Because it depends on your usage.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a lot of things that you can set up that would automate this to where you don't have to think about the savings or paying of the bills.
Yeah.
What is your biggest challenge, you would say, in doing this logistically?
My biggest challenge is, I think it is, and if I had to like try and step back, and even with my like therapist I used to go with, I would always do this and try and like be ahead of the curve and be like, this is what I think the problem is. But I think it is like, I think the reason fitness kind of, I can stick to it so easily is because you can kind of see the results, or if you're in the gym, you can feel yourself getting stronger. And I feel like with money financially, when you're trying to save, especially when you're starting right here, it just never feels like you saved that much. So it's very easy to be like, well, you didn't even save that much. So
that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, and I could totally see that. That's why I think it's good to have almost an invisible account.
Yeah.
That you don't see that much, that stifles money out. Because then when you look at it 3 months from now, you're like, oh, okay. And I didn't even notice that money was missing.
Yeah. So, and the closest I got to saving well was when, I'm a nerd gamer, and, points and stuff kind of worked for me. But Wells Fargo had this feature where it's like, you make a financial plan, and you're like, this is how much I'm trying to save. This is when I still have a savings account. And then it was like, all right, I think I was trying to get to 10 grand. And I actually got it, and it was like, every time I would go in there, it was like, oh, you're 30% away, and they would actually send you updates, like, oh, you're this much away. And I was doing it, and then, like, I had that dip in work that we all do, and then you start chipping away from it, and then I think I just spiraled after that point where it's like, well, it's all gone now anyway, so.
But I think it says something that you got so close to it. That means that you can absolutely do it again.
Yeah.
And then if you're building up, you almost need like a fail-safe too, a plan to where if you do have that dip, that you could do something where money could still be coming in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that could be. If you got a house, you could get a renter.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then the stocks. I have a friend that I can have you talk to that will help you with your finances and coming up with a good plan.
Yeah.
And maybe helping you find lower interest rate on your charge cards, figure out a retirement thing. Because there's something you can do with retirement, and this is why retirement is really sexy. Or insurance is sexy. Because you can set up a permanent life insurance plan to where you can keep feeding money into it with your premiums, and then after a certain point it'll build up a lot of money, and you can borrow that money from yourself, not pay it back, and it'll be tax-free.
Yeah.
So you could take this huge chunk of money and put a down payment on a property and then rent that out, and then you could have that passive income and not have to pay back the down payment. So there's so many cool things. I would say look into the Actors Fund Nuts and Bolts Financial Workshop. I think that's really, really going to help you. It's going to help you to figure out how to organize your money so you know where everything is, exactly how much you need, and a plan to make that amount every time, and also help you figure out a way where you can still get the fun stuff that you want to get, so you're not feeling restricted and you're seeing something back from the money that you're making.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So I definitely recommend that. Miata Doga, she's brilliant. She's great. You're going to love it. And it's free.
All right.
And then there's another book called Millionaire by 30. I read that. Spoiler alert, didn't make it. But it was very inspiring, and there's a lot of really good information in there. Okay. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course. And I'm sure there's tons of podcasts that you can listen to about money stuff. But it seems like the first thing that you want to do is get rid of that credit card payment.
Yeah.
Which is totally doable.
Yeah, I just feel like when I can... Because I feel like if that credit card can become my fund, then I don't have to worry about, necessarily any, you know what I mean?
I'm going to say I don't think it's a great idea to have that as a fun fund. Really? No, not at all. I don't think it's good to have a credit card as a fun fund. I think you need to have the money before you buy anything.
So then what would I use the credit card for? Because
emergencies.
Okay.
Like if your car breaks down, or if you really need to spend money, and then even then open up a new credit card and get one that's interest free. Yeah. And then pay it off in a way that's manageable, so you're not drowning in debt.
And so it's just you have the credit card sitting at zero balance forever?
Yeah, ignore it. Or get a card if you're going to use that. Like I might use a credit card for like flights and stuff with Southwest to build points and also pay that off right away so I don't stress about it. Yeah. Or get a credit card too that has a cash back option. So at least it's giving you some money back, and then you can take theoretically whatever money you make and put that into some sort of investment. So you're making money from money. Yeah. Which is brilliant, and you're not, Yeah. It's free money or whatever. So no, I definitely do not think it's a good idea to have a credit card as a fund. Okay. I think have that money to be able to pay for it. I'd say save up and have an account. You have a play account and keep adding to it every check, without thinking about it. $40 a week, $50 a week, or $100 or whatever you feel comfortable with, and then separate the rest out. I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I'm taking it.
But I don't know. What do I know? I'm poor. So,
but you have your own place.
I do, and that's a whole other story. I was really, really blessed in that regard. Wells Fargo screwed everyone over with the economy, like with the house stuff. So they were giving away $30,000 forgivable loans to first-time home buyers, and there's a lot of first-time home buyer programs. And I'd say, let's get your credit up, let's get your credit cards paid off, let's get you into a house. Let's build some equity, and you can buy some really fun toys, and give yourself the incentive for that. Think bigger toys, think better toys than just the shoes. You know what I mean? Have those still, but what's something really big you would want? Yeah. That would excite you to save that money. Look for your motivation in that. Okay, so we're going to wrap up for this portion. I'm going to ask you about your creative process, but before that, what were some takeaways for you?
Well, I feel like, I feel like there was this big secret to saving that, it feels like money to me, it feels like it's always been a mental block, and it seems like it was more complicated, and kind of hearing you lay it out, it has me interested and it has me excited almost because it feels like a challenge now.
Think of it like a game.
Yeah. And so I'm really excited to do it. It does suck that, I'm not getting paid this week, so I can't start on that journey. I'll have to wait a whole week.
No, that's good. It'll give you time to set things up.
Yeah.
Set up a system, an automated system that you don't have to think about. Yeah. To where it just runs automatically. You come and check in on it, you're like, cool, I got $1,000, you know? So, go ahead.
All right. And do you have... I don't know, any suggestions on it? Because I'm with Wells Fargo, and I think the biggest hurdle for me is always going to be opening the app and like seeing the savings. So when you said that, Capital One having their own savings account, that sounded enticing to me, because if I can just forget about it and just, send money that way every so often, I think that'll be easier, because, out of sight, out of mind. It no longer becomes a resource to me. Whereas, when I see it, it's like, oh, well, how much do I have to play with?
Yeah, if you're triggered by that, definitely set it up to where you can't see it. So yeah, that Capital One 360 checking account, it's online. Actually, it's just a savings account. I don't even have a debit card for it. So it's not, I can transfer money through bank accounts with it. And I have it set up so it automatically takes certain money out of my account each month and each week, and I don't think about it. And it compounds interest. So I'll actually make like $12 a year or $30 a year or something from it, depending on how much is in it. So it's really fun in that regard too. Wow. And I've definitely drained that a lot and had to, but the cool thing is it does get built back up because of the automatic savings that happens. Yeah. So yes, definitely have that, and I don't have that app on my phone either. It's like deleting Instagram on your phone. Like if you don't see it, then you're not going to get triggered to keep looking at it. Got it. So I think that would be a really good idea for you. Yeah. Millionaire by 30. Ugh, I don't want to overwhelm you, but definitely Actors Fund thing, if that interests you, and set up some automatic stuff. Definitely. Sounds like the most appealing thing to you right now is to set up that online checking account. Or savings account, I'm sorry. Yeah, definitely that, and just kind of getting that zero balance. Like, that's kind of been my goal, since I started this new current gig, was just full disclosure. So yeah, I started the new gig, I want to say August, and going in, I was like, with this gig, I'm going to pay off the cards. That's my goal. And that's kind of been how I would go into like my last writing job before this. I was like, all right, this is the writing job where I'm going to pay off. Like, I knew I had this like collection amount on my, because I have Credit Karma, so I can know what's on my credit, because I've been trying to bump up this credit score, and it's definitely been a journey. But I knew I had this, when I first moved to LA officially, it's crazy. I'm interested in what you're gonna think when you hear these two things. So I took out a payday loan for the down payment on my apartment, and then I borrowed against my retirement, because I was working for the LA County Register Recorder for 10 years. So I borrowed against it, and I was like, and I had the money, and even at the time I was like, I have enough money where I can pay off the payday loan and never think about it. But of course I was like, no, I'm just going to spend all of this money. And what ended up happening was the payday loan obviously went into collections, because I got it because I quit my job. I didn't have a job. And so that's been the biggest kind of account connected to my credit score for a while. But then I also heard that it's better to pay the smaller credit, the smaller accounts and collections before the bigger ones. So piece by piece I was doing it, and that was kind of like the last thing on my credit, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pay that off. I think it was like $2,000 or something, and I paid that off. And I think the last thing that's technically on there it's not really showing up, but it's my Bank of America account got closed with a $200 kind of I don't know what it's called, but basically I was overdraft like $200, and then they closed it. So like it was, what is it called when it's closed with account closed with whatever or the other. So that one's technically still there, and they've done the whole like, hey, pay us and we'll get rid of it. But I don't know if it's like, when I look for it, it's not showing up. So I'm like, is paying this actually going to help, or are you just getting money out of me? Yeah, I'm not really familiar with that, so I can't really speak on that. But that might be something they could talk to you about. Yeah. Miata could help you with. She's really cool, very knowledgeable and stuff. That sounds really stressful. And I think part of the reason, too, when you got the money to pay off that payday loan, that you were like, nah, I mean, paying debt is not fun. it's not sexy. It's not something you're like, ooh, I can't wait to get paid to pay off my credit card.
Yeah.
You're like, I'd rather go get something fun.
Yeah.
So definitely set something up to where you can pay your money off, but also you give yourself a little treat too. So it's not like they always say pay yourself first and then pay your bills. So I think focusing on building wealth in addition to paying the debt too is good. So you don't have to just focus on paying credit cards, but you could focus on building something better too, so that you have that cushion and you don't have to keep relying on credit cards. Yeah. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, it does.
And definitely check that out. Okay, so that's gonna wrap it up for the therapy portion, and we'll be right back with the creative portion on a little advice. And we are back at least 2 minutes later. Usually it's several seconds, but we kept talking about money.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing all that about your finances.
You were a finance whiz, because I remember, I don't know if it was at a comedy club or if it was that one black party we were at, but I remember you were talking.
We went to a Black Panther party.
Yeah. But you were talking about how you own a house and how like you're on top of like your finances. God,
I sound like such a douchebag.
Well, it wasn't douchey. You were, because I think it was someone who was just like me who was saying the thing like, I don't think I can ever own a house, and you're like, but you can.
You can, and a lot of people. Was there a bug?
No, that kind of looks like a weed plant, but it doesn't.
No, I got that from IKEA. I wanted 2 of them because there's a panda behind me with guns, and I wanted to make it look like he was in the forest. Yeah. I got halfway there.
I thought there was going to be a story about why you didn't get the second one. You
just probably didn't want to spend the money. I'm super frugal McDougal, which has its own problems too. Man,
it's rough.
I just have this fear of like I need to figure out how to take care of myself. Like I feel like I'm just going to be on my own. Like I need to figure it out. Even though I do have like resources that can help me and stuff, but I don't like depending on other people. Yeah. So I'd like to figure things out. Right. So that's part of it for me. So if you can find your nerd about it, that would be good too. But you can do it. It is possible. We can figure out how to, like, people get so afraid of money and dealing with it, but like you have so much more power and so much more control if you know like what's going on and what you can do with it and how to like make the best out of it. We're still talking about this. Okay.
Get to the other stuff.
Yeah. I don't even know if people like this podcast or if they're like, why are you mixing these 2 topics? But it's my podcast. That's why.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you do podcasts, you do stand-up, you play video games, you do a bunch of nerd stuff, Dragon Ball Z's. He just showed me these really dope shoes that I'm actually into myself. So, what's your creative process like? And you can pick any of those things.
Oh man, I can bounce around a bit since I am a rambler. It's for all of them, they're all uniquely different in ways, and there's thinking back on what we talked about and think back what I'm going to say, you're going to be like, see, that's what I'm talking about. But when it comes to like writing a script, so if I'm writing a script or a sample pilot, one thing that works for me is really just kind of trying to break that outline, and the way I break an outline is by giving.
What do you mean by break an outline? Like make an outline?
Yeah. So like when you have an idea for a pilot, you generally have an idea of some of the main characters, and you have the idea of the conflict and possibly a solution. But when you're writing a pilot, you need all the steps to get there and the things that might happen on the side, like your A and B story.
God, that sounds so stressful.
Yeah, so like to me, breaking an outline is really breaking those steps. Like, how are we going to get there? What are the connections we're going to make? And to really, what I found, at least with this last pilot I worked, that helps more than anything is to take a step back and write a really strong one sheet. And that's kind of just a lot of my path for writing, is to be extremely structured. I'm very much a unstructured person, but the more structure I have, and in knowing the steps that I'm gonna do, the easier it is for me, because then it's like, okay, then this is where I'm gonna do my dump of info. So
you can do that with money.
yeah.
Sorry.
See, didn't I say
I
you
know,
were gonna say?
I know. I held it back as far as I could.
But yeah, so I like in my one sheet to break down kind of the main characters that we're gonna see, and really break down who they are, where they came from, and like what makes them tick. Like, what do they want? What are they going to want out of the series? Because I find when you have that information, you know how they're going to respond to everything. That's the
So when you come up with a concept for a pilot, do you ever write movies too?
I do. I've never sat down and wrote it, because usually I'm been in the process of my team being behind me, like, time to get staff, so write a pilot.
Right. Okay.
But I definitely have a few ideas that I've been meaning to get to the page.
Because I want to write a movie.
Oh, you definitely should.
I just have, but like, so I don't know how to do it though.
Okay.
So when you come up with a concept for a pilot or whatever it is, do you start with characters, or what do you usually start with to flesh out?
It depends on if it's a very premise-based pilot, where it's like
what?
So like if the pilot's very premise-based, I had one. The premise of it is that it was kind of loosely based off of me, but like as a slacker, I got laid off from my job, and my dad, who's this Nigerian immigrant, has so high expectations and wants me to be able to provide for my family. He moves in with me. And that was the premise. I was like, okay.
He takes your credit cards.
Yeah. So the premise is that this guy who can't really, who's trying to keep it together, whose father thinks he's a fuck up. Now his father moves in with him. So now I have that premise, and luckily, since it's kind of based off of me, I know the characters are going to be me, my dad, and Aurora. But then through really kind of thinking about it, I got my mom. I was like, she's definitely going to need to be in it. And then this guy, he's named after my Uncle Steve, but he's an amalgamation of every Nigerian uncle I had ever met. And so I knew I had those characters. So then I was like, okay, who else is there? Weldon is going to be there, who's like my best friend. And so since I had those core characters, it was like, cool. It was great. And so that is kind of how I start with a premise base. So then I had one that was character based, and this is kind of where I learned that trick, where I had this concept, or I still have this concept. I took it out to pitch, but now we're reworking it and taking it out to a larger market, which is just a short way to say networks passed on it.
And don't steal his idea.
I mean, you could try.
Don't try.
But this story was character based. It was called Meatheads, and it's a workplace comedy that takes place in a gym. And so with this, I wrote down all these characters in the gym, but I was like, okay, I was just kind of stuck, and I was like, what can I do to make these characters pop for me? Because they're kind of just kind of sitting there, and I was like, oh, what do all of them want? It came a little easier to me, because I feel like with fitness, we all want something, but I was able to take a step back and be like, no, what do they want out of life? And once I wrote that down for everyone, I immediately was like, oh, this is it. This is how I knew what anyone would react to, how any one of those characters would react to anything, because I've already laid down their worldview, what they want, and how they see the world. So I kind of took that kind of thinking back to Moving In, which was the one about, me and my dad. And I was like, okay, what does Iffy want out of this situation? What does his dad want? What does Weldon want? And you get these more well-rounded, fleshed-out characters, because you're like, okay, for example, Weldon, his big character, he's loosely based off of one of my best friends. And one thing about Weldon as a person in real life is he seems like he's always searching for what he almost like, I don't want to say who he is, but just kind of like what's his thing. Like, he seems like he's always in a search. Like he's bounced between like being a religious person and not a religious person. He's bounced between being like a person who's a nerd versus like someone who's like he's going to be really into fitness. So I took that and I was like, oh yeah, this is what the character's about. He's kind of just searching for what he wants out of life, and then that led into his B story of like how he changes for every one of his girlfriends. So he was dating like a poet,
great.
so he's like now he's into poetry, and before that he was dating this girl who wanted to be a programmer, so he was taking programming classes and it was driving him nuts.
So is that going to be like a recurring theme throughout the show? Would be him like, who's he dating now?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then eventually that'll just hopefully blossom and turn into something even more
And he'll
fun.
grow as a person or something. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. When you look at that and you look at characters and say, what do they want out of life? Do you apply that to people in your life or yourself in your life? Like if I were to say, what do you want out of life? Would you be able to answer that? Or when you look at people, do you see like, oh, it seems like they want this out of life? Or
Well, I mean, I feel like it's kind of helped me in this industry a bit, mostly because I used to internalize a lot of things. I am I watch people's body language, and I forget that everyone isn't as aware of themselves as they are, as you perceive them. Like, you know, so if like say we're having this conversation and like you were waiting for like a package, and so you're just kind of like looking out the window the whole time, and like I would take that person like, oh, I'm talking too much. She wants me to wrap it up, but that's not it. But I think you tend to when you're a person who wants to follow your intuitions, you forget that you don't have all the informations to make that stuff. So to take that step back, you can see how that can make you feel some type of way in this industry. If especially like you go to a club and you like wave at someone and they're talking to someone and they're like, oh hey, and you're like, oh, I guess they're trying to be brand new because and then also just stuff like if you want to collab with someone or if you want to be friendships are hard, I find, because especially in this business
because it's like there's like a hierarchy and
I hate bringing this up because like I started bringing it up as a joke, then like genuine things came up about this. Then like also like even though I know he's probably not gonna be listening to any podcast that I'm on, but I was like I don't want him to like think I'm overthinking this. But I knew Timothy Chalamet. Yeah. And so we were in a short film like when I first started doing acting, and so we kind of kept in touch, but he's based in New York, so it was the same way you keep in touch with anyone in New York, just messages here and there. And like one time he was out here in Comic-Con and we kicked it together, and then like we watched the finals at my crib together, and so he's like this mega star.
So crazy. He's
and
huge.
like we were texting too, because like when Call Me by Your Name, when I got the screener, I like texted him a video of him like of his name and the credits and like with Migos, and he like was like, oh man, that's real funny. And then I was like, hey man, we're gonna go for the Oscar. He's like, dude, I hope, and this whatever. Then he gets the Oscar nomination and like skyrockets, and then we kind of fall out of touch. But then I found myself like, I was like, I don't like you when it was the closest I've been to something like that. So like I really was like, I felt like I was a little more aggressive because I was like, I knew he was about to blow up, and I was like, I don't want you to forget about me. But but it's the same principle, I think, in this industry in general, where it's like no one is necessarily going to forget about you. They're just going to be busy as hell.
Yeah.
But it's so, I think it's because like our perception of what making it and what Hollywood is molded even before we even know we want to be in this business, where everyone's like, people go to Hollywood, they get famous, and then they forget about the little people, and then they're on their own.
Some people do big time you, and you can't tell if they're... you never know, because they have, like, I mean, I hate to say it like this, they have, like, the upper hand, they have the power, they have the ability to completely destroy you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, hi, and he's like, who are you? Ew, I'm like, and some people could do that, but it doesn't sound like he's the type of person that would do that.
He's genuinely nice.
But you never know. So it's like, it's a protection mechanism, I think, too.
Yeah, but because of that, even on a smaller scale, I think of, like, our relationships with people and, like, say, I wanted to, hit shows with you, or I wanted, to hang out with you because, and we'll look at it, if we're the ones who want that, as, like, I just want to do that because I think they're cool. In actuality, like, I'm making a greater effort to hang out with you because you are on, and there is, like, a light sensation, like, I want that piece of you, but, like, you still would get salty. And the one way I've been able to check that is, like, just to see why I went on this tangent, is looking at what people want. It's like, how valuable are you to that person, and what value are you getting out of them, and what are you actually seeking? Because so many people make it seem like, oh, I just want to connect on a human level. It's like, no, there's something you're hoping to get out of it with that friendship. We don't want to look at it that way because we're so afraid of seeming like we're using it, but we can't lie to ourselves. It's part of it. It's a part, and so I've kind of been able to check myself and ground myself with being like, most friendships, which are, like, going to be organic, are going to be built as you both seeing value in the relationship you'll get out of it. You're like, I can't go to Will Smith and try and build a relationship because what value is he going to get out of hanging out with me?
You guys could be workout buddies.
Yeah, I mean, but he's like, I can call up The Rock, and that's a better one. Like, there really is, like, no true value of exchange. Now then think of what I get out of it. I get so much. If I appear in one of his Instagram videos, if he shouts me out, that does so much more for me than it would do for him. And you can't just take that personal, because also, putting you aside, who isn't trying to necessarily use anyone. You're trying to build a real connection, and if nothing happens, nothing happens. You have to remember the whole bunch of other people who are just like, no, I want to use you. I know what I can get from you. I know I have nothing to offer from you, and I just want to take that from you. And you have to realize that they're dealing with that too, and to not take your requests personal, but just to be like, all right, we're just not on the same wavelength right now. I hope what I'm saying is making sense.
I mean, I gotta say, that's a pretty mature and, like, honest assessment. Like, I think a lot of people don't really think about in terms of what is this person going to get from you, and, like, being honest with yourself about what your motivations are. I mean, it could be to connect as human beings too, but, like, like you're saying, you would get so much more of a connection with Will Smith than he would get from you, and to really be able to check your motivations and not take things personally. That's huge. That's really huge. So that's really cool that you would get that from looking at things in the perspective as a writer. That's really cool. That's really interesting. I think, to take back. So that's the writing stuff. I find with comedy, it's very different for me.
Where comedy, it's a combination of both, just kind of like absorbing the information coming in and actually thinking about it. Like, and so I never thought too much about the process of a comedian until, like, do you use Reddit much at all?
I mean, I try.
Yeah, but I go into I peruse our stand-up a lot, and it's a lot of, like, newbie comics coming in and, like, asking questions and getting shit on by these nobody comics.
Comics are so mean.
Oh yeah, but what's so funny is, like, it's always like some guy you never heard of from some city you kind of know about. Like, it's never gonna be like, someone who you're like, Jack, why are you being mean to this guy? Like, it's always somebody who's like, you're what's the word? I love using this word because I say it so much. But you're posturing. You're trying to make yourself feel more important as a stand-up by, like, shitting on this newbie. And I find that outside of Reddit, We see that in LA. Like every January, like everyone has such a big, like, oh, so many of these resolution comics, and it's like, so what? It's like we all have to start somewhere, and they're not a threat. You should, like, I don't know.
I think too, it like gets passed down, like, like in school, like the older kids picking on the younger kids, and then you can come up and be an older kid and either go two ways. You could either say, I remember being picked on and I didn't like it, so I'm going to be nice to these kids, or I was picked on, so they're going to have to deal with it too.
It made me better.
Yeah, good, get thick skin or whatever. So yeah, that's really interesting. I forgot what else I was going to ask you in regards to that. So when you write stand-up, what is your process like for that?
I typically tend to, I don't know, like, it's so wild because, I'll try and do, like, the thing where it's like, let me just see what's going on in the world today, but that never, ever inspires me. But what I find is, like, being around it a lot and just kind of having people talk to me, which is, like, the other side of writing, if we could jump back to that. Whenever I get stuck, I find the best way to get more ideas is to tell your ideas to other people. If you have an idea of, like, for your movie, if we weren't on the podcast and no one could steal your ideas, you can just tell me, like, your idea, and every question that I ask, you'll know that that's a question the audience is going to want to know, and then you're either going to have an answer for it, and we can, like, dive deep into that aspect of the story, or you won't, and you can think about it.
That's hilarious. Another way it could go is you asking me questions I'll interpret as like, he doesn't think I'm good enough. Like, and make it like crazy and like mean something terrible about myself.
Please don't. If I'm asking questions, it's because I'm interested.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't think that you would do that, but sometimes I do feel a little defensive.
Oh yeah.
In comedy, because you don't know, like, which is my own thing. I'm getting over it, but because a lot of times you come in as a newer comic and as a woman comic too, people kind of challenge you in a different kind of way that doesn't seem like it's like it's a camaraderie thing. It's like you're not. I just felt so insecure starting out, like whether I was even funny enough or not, and I still deal with that too, even though I'm the funniest person in the world. No, I'm kidding, but so yeah, that's great. God, I could talk to you, like, I still want to talk to you more about the writing process, but I know this is going long, and you probably got, like,
don't worry about
brownie
the time limit.
Well, I have a show to get to soon, too.
So I guess we have to worry about the time limit.
I'll just ask you this last question, and then we'll figure out where people can see you and stuff. Before your greatest success in your career, if you can think of anything, or even in your life, what was a mental shift, if any, that you had before it happened?
I think about this a lot, and I say it a lot because it's so funny because it's a mental shift I have, and now a pet peeve I have because a lot of people do it. But to stop asking permission to create, I find that so many people want permission. I've seen so many posts on Facebook that was like, if I make this, will y'all watch it? And it was like, it doesn't matter if we'll watch it, just make it. Like, because if you're waiting for permission to do it, that's just like another wall you're kind of setting of yourself. Just make it. Because one, you're gonna fail when you're starting at anything. I think it was either the Duplass brothers or one of the filmmaker big dogs was like, make your first short, make your first whatever, because it's gonna suck. And then once you get that out of your system, because you learn from sucking. Every time you do something, depending on who you are, you learn from sucking. Because if you are willing to, and I think this will be the second wave of it, even if you don't necessarily believe it, there is something to like finding where you went wrong and something not working. Sometimes it isn't your fault. Sometimes you definitely did do everything right and it was the crowd, or it was because they didn't give you a mic for the show. But if you can sit there and try and critique yourself and see what you did wrong, and I'm not saying go in a spiral where you're picking apart yourself, and really I think that's harmful, but when you're just like, okay, what can I do to make this better? Yeah. That's always going to leave you as a better artist. And definitely, I think once I was like, I'm gonna just do these things. I think I want to make this. I'm gonna just do this joke. I'm gonna I'm gonna go to this mic. I'm gonna ask to do this show. I think
can also to remember too, like no one gives a shit about you.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna be like, how dare you do that? They're only thinking about themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
I think that's true too. I think that. Ooh, that's so good. Like, no one gives a shit about you. Because I feel like so many people are afraid to take the leap because they think that if they get rejected once, they'll forget. But it's like, no, I mean, for example, put your hands together. The first tape I sent, I heard nothing back. The second tape I sent, they were like, oh, yeah, thanks for sending the tape. And then the third tape I sent, I got on the show. They never once were they like, you've sent us 2 tapes and you think that you're going to get on this show? But it's so easy. I get it, though.
I've submitted to so many shows just once, and I'm like, they hate me.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better about that, but that's such a good point.
Oh,
you have to keep, there's so many people around asking for things and doing stuff. You have to follow up, and you have to stop acting like you're being such a burden.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a difference between that and, like, harassing people and, like, knowing where you are level-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But
also, it's like, own your space. There is
Yeah.
no levels. I do want to say, it is bullshit. I see so many people, I think that goes back into waiting for permission. There's this concept of paying dues that we're forced to believe from those same older comics who want to bully. And really, the only people who want you to pay your dues are people who want to stunt you so that you don't get more successful quicker than they did.
But what about someone who just started and they're trying to do like a big thing? Like, do you think it would be good?
I think go ahead and
or
take
if they're
that,
not funny, or like they're I think William Hung. I mean, he's still got successful, but you know what I mean, like that.
But with that, it's like take that L.
Do it
because like either. Luckily, the producers are good enough to determine whether you're good enough to do the show. And if they do think you're good enough to do the show, like I've heard people been like, I had someone go, I did Bridgetown too early because, I went out there, I was just like X amount of time. And it was like, if you got into Bridgetown when you were X months in, you got in because you got in. Because they definitely didn't know it. So why are you beating up on yourself because you didn't do anything? It's like, take your L's, go for it, jump, shoot for the moon. Because if you fucking get it, then try and make it work. You have like Bo Burnham who got popular off of YouTube videos that were like 2-3 years old, and I remember I was listening to him on WTF, and he was like, I just feel bad because I don't want I felt like I didn't pay my dues. Like apparently he was planning to move to New York and do the grind. It's like, yeah, but you don't have to do it, and just cut your teeth. I mean, I would love just like use the stage time to take your L's, because people aren't gonna just laugh at you automatically. You've been in clubs. Some of the best comics still go on stage and don't do well. So you getting more opportunities quicker, I don't think is going to stunt or harm you, unless you let it go to your head. Then you get people who have egos who are much larger than they actually are, and that's when you run into problems.
They'll learn from that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's true. Like
I miss having like the new comic energy, and it lasted such a short time. But like during that time, it's like I was so funny and I was playful, and I didn't know any better to be freaked out or intimidated by certain things. I was like, I'll submit for this, I'll do this, I got this, and then the more you learn, the more you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to.
I know, and it's like, but it's funny because it's such bullshit. Like, how many times have you been like at a party and you're just talking your head off to this person, having a real good conversation? They walk away and somebody comes up and goes, "Oh, did you know that was so and so?" And it was like, no, but like if I did, I would have acted totally different. And what went wrong with me just being myself? It seems like we really hit it off.
Yeah, you made an actual connection, and it wasn't like this weirdness of like, oh my god, this is so and so, I have to be on or a certain way. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely know what you mean with that. I have enjoyed talking to you so much. Seriously, this is so great. I've learned a lot, and I hope that you have some stuff that you can apply to. Where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me at IfYWadiwe, IfYNWADIWE. On Twitter and Instagram, IfD's on Twitch if that's your thing. And look, I've been making video game videos for BuzzFeed, so check that out. When does this drop?
It'll probably drop in not next Monday, but the Monday after.
Okay, perfect. By then, BuzzFeed Multiplayer has launched, and
Great.
I'm a part of that team. We're doing video game stuff. Check it out.
And you have a podcast too, right,
Yeah,
with Danny?
oh yeah. I always forget my own podcast. Me and Danny Fernandez have
Love her.
Nerdificent.
She's great.
Every Tuesday that drops, and then me and my buddy Matt Apodaca have a podcast called Candy Dinner. If you ever want to come on, let me know. If you're
Was it
available.
Candy?
No, we just talk shit.
I'm in.
Yeah, Candy Dinner was a nickname on our old improv team when we were Orange County because we were the two youngest. So they would just call us Candy Dinner as like, oh, look at Candy Dinner over here. And it just stuck, and we were like, that's the name of our podcast.
It's very triggering for me.
Yeah.
Because I love candy and I do eat it for dinner.
We can get you some candy.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for being here. If you guys like this podcast, even if you don't, just like it, subscribe, share, comment, leave reviews. Anything else I'm leaving out?
No, I think you nailed it.
I nailed it. You guys, thank you so much for listening to A Little Advice.